vlog. Welcome to another week in my life. You've seen a little bit of my work week. I haven't really had the chance to check in at all this week. I feel like work is a little bit crazy. If you are catching me after watching my last vlog, I'm still in like a very reflective mood. If anything, I think I was struggling to reflect in my last vlog, and now it's just like that's just kind of like the tone / theme of the last, I feel like, couple weeks I've had. We're just like very like naturally inclined to reflection, which has definitely been interesting. I kind of think it's like a product of being inside so much because it's really freaking cold. So that's where we're at. I think I'm going to check in. I've like done some reading recently on turning 30. I'm still very much in my, I guess, like feels, but like happy feels about turning 30 and like thinking about that and my life and what I'm doing and what I'm gonna be doing. So if that sounds like it's of interest to you, stick around. I should introduce myself. My name is Mackenzie. This is my channel, Think Too Much. Thank you for being here. If you stick around and you enjoy it, please feel free to like and subscribe. But yeah, let's get into it. It's a Friday, I'm working from home, and it's gonna blizzard this weekend. Should be fun. It is 12 degrees today. It's not enough. It is Sunday. We're in the middle of our blizzard. Something about the build-up to this blizzard kind of made it seem like Sunday would just like stretch on forever, which I'm sorry to report was not the case. There was a lot of like panic grocery shopping, probably like panic shopping otherwise, that New York and I imagine other metros were doing, just kind of because everyone was really freaked out about this weather event. And I just think something about that spirit really made it feel like this weekend was going to drag on forever because of the snow somehow. But alas, Sunday night has arrived, which means Monday is just around the corner. But we did have like a nice kind of cozy day in. I did some journaling this morning, although I don't even know if I would call it journaling, because it was like, it started out as journaling and then I was just kind of inspired to like write an essay about turning 30. So that is what I did. Have a first draft of an essay done, and then I was like editing an old piece that I'd done. I think I'm gonna try to publish that today. But I've just been doing so much kind of like reflecting lately, especially kind of in the lead up to turning 30, also like immediately after the new year. A lot of thoughts, a lot of reflections. I'm not even sure that I have like answers or like conclusions. Just kind of in my zone of thinking too much, but not necessarily in a bad way. I've been enjoying it, and it's been kind of pleasant to reflect on I don't know, I guess what kind of feels like the final transition, that I think that, like, I think I mentioned this in another vlog, but like starting at 27, I started to wrap my head around approaching 30, being in my 30s, like that kind of stage of life. And in some ways that was like very exciting, because I think in my mind, 30s always seemed like just like a really good time in life for women, just based on the conversations I'd had with my mom. I had a conversation with Max's mom, and just kind of some of the things that I've like seen and read, like some of the media figures that I follow turned 30 before I did, and just kind of witnessing women kind of come into their own at that stage of life, I think just kind of subtly signaled that it would be something to look forward to. So in a lot of ways, it's like kind of a positive thing, but in other ways, it's like a little bit daunting, right? That it's like you're kind of moving away from undeniable youth, I guess. That it's like, in the essay, I was calling it like my 20s, like the focal point of my youth. Like it just felt like that. It's like once you're in your 20s, it's like you just are very youthful. There's no doubt about that. I think that's true like in your 30s too, but it becomes like, I don't know, more of an open question. And also you're not a child anymore. I'm sure it's, I don't know. It's one of those things that like, it feels like I'm going to look back on this in like 10 years and be like, I thought I knew something. But no, I really think that when I compare where I'm at now to even where I was at like 26, there just was kind of a lot of maturation and growth and kind of almost like shedding the skin of like being a kid still. I think that was kind of one of the mind fucks of getting engaged, was just this kind of like reckoning very suddenly with the fact that like we were adults that could do this. And I think that your 20s, but especially your late 20s, there's like a lot of like, wait, but I'm just a kid. And then this realization that, wait, no, I'm not actually. I'm like several years into my career. I'm, paying for my own livelihood. I'm making all of these decisions that have very kind of concrete effects on my life and like what I am able to do in life. And that is kind of an intimidating thing to come to terms with. And I think I spent years 27 to 29, almost 30, coming to terms with it. So pleasantly for me, I think that means that I'm kind of entering into 30 with a lot of kind of enthusiasm and readiness. I think that one of the weird things about transitioning out of your 20s, even over like a series of years, and also just like witnessing yourself in transition, that it's like physically things are changing, like alcohol doesn't hit the way it used to, it hits harder. And you feel the after effects the next day more readily. And also just like emotionally and like in terms of like maturity, there's just like a level of confidence that I have now that I did not have in my early to mid 20s. And just a level of self-assuredness. Also a level of kind of understanding of the fact that I'm probably never going to come to a place where I just like have it figured out and like know what's going on. I think that there's something about being young that you're just kind of waiting for your life to start. And I think that my late 20s was a lot about coming to the realization that life has begun and it's moving very quickly. So if you've got something that you want to do, just like fucking do it. Yeah. And so naturally this is kind of ushered in a lot of conversations. Even like this weekend, me and Max had like a lot of conversations about what life transitions were going to look like. And I've mentioned in other videos, we're getting very serious about figuring out when our next move is. We know what it is. We know we want to move to the Bay Area. The next step is figuring out exactly when that happens. And it feels like that due date is creeping closer. It's just a matter of pulling the trigger, honestly. There's been a lot of like reflecting that I've been doing on like my career, if I am enjoying the path that I'm on, if I want to explore other paths, and just kind of wanting to get these things done in some ways, like before we try to start a family, but also just because why not? Like, why put it off any longer? I like don't really feel the need to screw around and like waste any more time. And I think that's something too about like your early 20s, or like for my early 20s. I shouldn't speak for other people, but I feel like my early 20s were a lot about like getting to know myself, and that took a lot of kind of like being very social and being very extroverted and kind of, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but I just feel like it was like a lot of kind of putting myself out there socially and exploring friendships and relationships and like developing relationships. There was just a lot of that exploration that needed to happen. And it was kind of like when I started to enter my late 20s, I kind of started to transition into kind of this like recognition that I feel like I'd explored what I needed to explore in that zone, you know? And I'd kind of figured some stuff out. With, you know, especially with on the relationship front, I'm literally married now. And it was just kind of time to focus on career and time to focus on what that looks like, and just kind of fulfillment in that zone. Because I think when you're first leaving college, and I guess depending on your circumstances, but it's like, for me, it was a lot about just figuring out how to be independent. And then figuring out how to be independent in a way that's a little bit more comfortable than when you were independent, but like really fucking broke. And now it's kind of like, all right, I figured out the independence thing. I've developed like a self-confidence. I've got like experience. What does it look like if I try to, you know, demand more kind of fulfillment out of life, whether that be in my career or in my kind of like extracurricular activities, YouTube, all of the above, Substack, like just kind of exploring those creative interests that I don't want to say were put on the back burner, because that's not true, but just kind of getting, maybe like kind of dreaming bigger, getting more serious about giving some things my best effort and kind of having the tools to structure my life around kind of being in service to those things now that certain other chapters have closed. I hope that makes sense. As you can tell, this video and like the last video, all kind of in the theme of like, I'm about to turn 30 and I have a lot of thoughts about it. And I wasn't really interested in doing like one of those like 30 things I learned before 30. There's a handful of things, and maybe one day I'll do that video, but right now I'm kind of interested in sitting with the questions and exploring. So that is a lot of what I've been doing. Yeah, I might link some of the readings I've been doing around this topic below, because I think that they've been kind of really fun and really interesting. I think more than anything, I think it's kind of just been nice to read things that I kind of recognize my own experience in. I've got one of Joan Didion's books, Slouching Towards Bethlehem's, you know, one of them, one of her most famous books, and she's got a couple of essays that kind of explore transition, and one is called Goodbye to All of That, which ironically, coincidentally, is her writing about essentially like entering her late 20s, early 30s, and realizing that she was ready to move on from New York City, which feels like a weird thing to say. Like, I don't know what it means to be like ready to move on from a city, but she did. She moved out, and she just kind of realized that it just wasn't the right space for her anymore, that like the relationship that she was going to have with it, that she had wanted to have with it, she'd kind of gotten everything out of it that she could, and then it was kind of time to move on. I thought it was kind of interesting, as someone who is considering leaving New York themselves and very soon, and I'm about to turn 30, could obviously connect to a lot in that. But yeah, I think one of the lines that I read that really resonated, it was like something about like she turned 28 and all of a sudden realized that like all of the decisions that you've made have had consequences or will continue to have consequences. And I think that is kind of a nice, like, succinct way to explain the transition from 20s to 30s, at least for me, was just kind of this recognition that like we're not waiting for life to start. Life has begun and it's moving quickly, and it's kind of my job to figure out how I want to live it So why waste any more time? So that's my spiel about approaching 30. My last video was like a lot of kind of questions and not a lot of answers. We're still in that zone, but I do think some of the reflection that's kind of naturally derived from that has lent itself to some level of kind of clarity and understanding. And I don't even feel like it's like I'm coming to these realizations. It's more so just kind of crystallizing what this 3-year transition has been about, and what it's meant to me, and like what the kind of outcomes have been in terms of how I look at life and how I'm approaching life now. Yeah. That's where we're at. I think for the rest of the night, I need to call my parents back because they called me while I was recording this. And me and Max might try to finish a movie that we started, although I don't think he liked it very much, so that might not happen. We're gonna cook dinner. We're gonna continue to hunker down while it blizzards outside. It is very beautiful, as you would have seen because I showed you footage. Yeah, and keep my fingers crossed that this weather does not completely fuck up my week next week, because as an executive assistant, I have booked a lot of travel for next week that is at risk. So that's where we're at. I will check in later.